I only intended to paint one book, but once I started, I couldn't stop. I'm confident in my ability to make painted sprayed edges, so that part of the video will be a tutorial, but I'm new at the stenciling and illustrations, so that part is going to be more of an experiment. Chapters will be in the description, so you can skip around if desired. Ready to see my cat and I potentially ruin books? Let's go! To create sprayed edges on a book, you're going to need 5 things and your book. I chose the book Genius Squad because I got it used and it has some water stains on the edges of the pages that I would like to paint over. You'll need paint. I chose acrylic paint that's the same color as the dust jacket. You'll need a paintbrush. Can be as small or as large as you're comfortable with. A dish to put the paint in, paper, and tape. Remove the dust jacket. Unless you have chosen a book where you don't mind getting paint on the cover itself, protect the hardcover from getting paint on it. Stick a couple pieces of paper inside the book. Folding the paper around the cover of the book, both horizontally and vertically. Use tape to keep the paper in place. Tape the paper to itself. Do not tape directly on the book because you could peel off part of the book when you remove the tape later. Once you have folded and taped protective covers on the front and back of your book, lay paper down to shield your table from paint drips. I appreciate my cat inspecting the paper covers and the paint dish to be sure everything was acceptable before I moved on to the next step. Squeeze paint into the dish. Get paint onto the brush and spread it along the paper edges of the book, spreading it evenly along the paper. Squeeze the book tightly with one hand and paint with the other hand. Move your hand along the book and squeeze the book together wherever it is that you're painting. When painting the pages more than one color, paint the lighter color first and then blend it with the darker color. Since your protective paper cover doesn't extend to where the binding goes, I make sure to paint super carefully up and down instead of side to side. Another strategy is to just put a very small amount of paint on a really tiny paintbrush to get into the corners by the binding. As it dries, look to see if any spots are lighter than others, and if they are, you can just go over them with more paint. Acrylic paint dries quickly, but Hurricane pointed out that while we waited for it to dry, my hand was available to pet him. Once it has dried, remove the paper covers. Don't be alarmed if any paint is making the paper cover stick to the pages. If you run your finger slowly between the page and the paper cover, it will separate easily. Slip your paper covers off and reuse the protective covers that you made on other books you want to paint later, as long as the books are the same size. I reused the same paper covers when I painted other books in the same series, the respective colors of their dust jackets. For most books, a single coat of paint is sufficient, but I did find that when I had a second-hand book with a discarded library stamp on it, I needed to let the paint dry and then go over it with another coat about 4 times. What you have done is painted the pages of the book together so they are one large block. The pages need to be separated. Run your thumb along the corner of the pages in both directions to begin separating them. While this is generally a task completed independently, I respect an animal companion who doesn't believe that flawed humans like us can complete it without assistance. Also run your thumb along the sides and top and bottom of the block of pages. Now you have loosened the pages. It will still get stuck in a few places. So we're going to go through the book and turn each individual page. Lay the book flat and carefully flip pages. When you come to a page that gets stuck, gently tug it apart. For pages that are firmly stuck together, slide your finger between them and move it gently along the painted seam, slowly and gently, so that it peels apart. This process requires more time and concentration when the layer of paint is thicker due to multiple coats of paint being used. The crackling sound as you peel the paint apart is normal. Do not be concerned that you are tearing pages. Once you have turned every page, you should be able to fan through it easily. Slip the dust jacket back on and enjoy your book with homemade sprayed edges. One way of doing stenciled designs on the edges is that after you've painted your edges, you can simply draw a design. I'm going to try to draw these bones featured on the cover. Well, squeeze the pages together and outline the design in pencil before going over it in the permanent marker. I drew the skull, crossbones, and a hand and arm bone in pencil, and now I'm going to go over it with the marker. With the soft felt tip, you can see that I did smear the ink a little bit. If I had sanded the pages before I painted and drew on it, then that wouldn't have happened. I'm also going to try drawing with stencils instead of freehand. You might find it easier to squeeze the pages together with the cover closed. I am happy with the way that this turned out, even though it's not perfect. I left the top red just because I want an option for it to be solid color on the shelf. I like it for my first attempt at stenciling. For my second attempt, I chose a book where I wanted to leave the background of the edges white, so I chose to not paint them first. And instead, I picked some stencils where I want to just paint directly into the stencil onto the white paper. Hold down the stencil along the pages, getting paint on a paintbrush and painting inside the stencil. Because I'm using paint again, you'll notice I put protective paper covers around the covers of the book again. Don't worry if you get any paint on the stencil. If you're not happy with it, you can always touch things up with the paintbrush. When only stenciling one side instead of painting all of the edges, it is much easier to separate the pages. I found it just required running my thumb along the sides and then fanning through. There was no need to turn every page. I'm going to try to draw the fireworks that are on the front and back cover of Red, White, and Royal Blue along the bottom edges of the pages, and if I like how they turn out, I'll draw it along the top as well, and if I don't, I'll leave the top white. I held the pages together with one hand and I drew with the other hand, and I think it looks pretty good, but I must admit the ink of the blue marker turned out a bit more green looking than I was expecting. Since I liked how it turned out, I decided to draw some designs on the top as well. For the interior illustrations of Red, White, and Royal Blue, I bought fan-made sticker sheets from 2 different Etsy sellers. I'll link them in the description below. And then I made a list of which stickers I wanted to put beside which chapter titles. The American flag came off the sheet and stuck onto the paper without any issue. The British flag has some paper attached, so it doesn't actually have its adhesive backing. So I'm gonna have to get a little piece of double-sided tape to use on the back of. For the most part, this turned out well, but sometimes plans have to change. I had planned on using these stars because I thought they were individually removable, but they're not. I would have to peel off the whole big piece and then cut out the little stickers, which I'm not really inclined to do. I think I would rather just use some stenciling with the colored pencils. After diligently supervising, it was time for the cat to nap while I finished the project alone. There we go. The colored pencil works fine with the stencils. Using the marker on the top of the page and the paint on the side without clamps, there was a little bit of color bleed through along the top or sides or bottom of some of the pages, but I honestly don't mind that. I think it adds a little bit of fun character to the book, and it definitely doesn't affect the readability of the pages, given that the text is in the center. I hope you enjoyed watching me do this artistic experiment with my cat. Let me know if you plan on doing this with any of your own books and if you have any tips.